Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football, continuing to take a look at some of the big games on this Week 3 college football slate. And we got a really good one, a game that a couple weeks ago probably wouldn't even have been previewed. And Houston probably is expected to win by 21 points. We talked about Kansas a little bit in the summer. They're starting to turn the corner. I did not know turning the corner by going on the road, beating West Virginia, that quick of a turn the corner. I mean, this Kansas team and what Lance Leipold has done since he's gotten to Kansas from Buffalo has been absolutely phenomenal. As a Wake Forest guy, there's nobody in the country that deserves some success than the Kansas Jayhawks. They've been kind of battling it out in the basement of the Big 12 for a while, and they're clearly turning the corner. And they got some real athletes on the offense side of the ball that they can put up points with. And this team is going to be extremely fun to watch, going up against a team that I loved doing summer work on. I think they're going to win the AAC. Obviously, a really tough game on the road at Texas Tech last week, going down in 2 overtimes. This Houston Cougars team is still really good, and this game is going to be really good. Before we get into it, just wanted to say thank you guys for all the support you guys have shown the channel. We really do appreciate it. Love talking ball with you guys in the comment section, especially the Cougars fans. We've been talking a lot. We're very high on this team. Still are high on this team. And we're talking a little bit about what we want to see from both teams. I don't really have a pick in this game, but I do want to talk about this team or this matchup because both these teams are really intriguing. And we're going to learn a lot about both of these teams after week 3. Let's start getting into it. Let's start with Kansas just because I got a chance to go back and watch the film from their win against West Virginia. And what I want to start off with is the playmakers they have with the ball in their hands. I mean, it can start with the quarterback in Jalen Daniels, who I think is a very smooth runner. It's one thing we talked about Haynes King, Texas A&M quarterback, straight line speed. Yeah, he has it, but he's not a very natural ball carrier. Jalen Daniels gets it with the ball in his hands, setting up blocks, making defenders miss in space, working angles. He is so smooth, so fluid with the ball in his hands, and he can throw the ball. That's not his game. His game is definitely more of a dual threat running quarterback. But he can throw the ball pretty well, and he's brought a lot of life to this Kansas offense that just hasn't really shown life for a while now. They also have some really good running backs that I think really fit what they're trying to do. Starts with Devin Neal. Devin Neal's a guy, I didn't know much about him. I knew he had a good end of his season last year. Didn't really get to watch much football of him. He's extremely impressive. I watched both Kansas games week 1 and week 2. Anytime this kid touches the ball, you have to watch out for him. He fits the offense really well. With that read option look, you get a lot of open space. And Devin Neal's a guy that you want to get open space to. He's got really quick feet, can make people miss in the phone booth, and then straight line speed to burn safeties, burn defensive backs to the end zone. He's a big play waiting to happen. And when you're Kansas, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for some special athletes on the offensive side of the ball. And Devin Neal's a guy that can make that happen. On the defense, they obviously still need a little bit of work. JT Daniels kind of tore him up last week. But what you're starting to see with Kansas that you didn't see in the last couple of years for a while now with Kansas is they're starting to have playmakers that can make them competitive in the Big 12 again. I mean, for the last, 5-7 years, they just haven't had the athletes. They haven't recruited well enough. They haven't developed well enough. And it was pretty clear every time they stepped on the field with a Big 12 opponent, they just didn't have the athletes to win. I mean, as much as you want to blame the play calling, quite frankly, the Jimmies versus the Joes, Kansas just didn't have the players to win football games at the Big 12 level. And yeah, that does have to do with coaching and development. But from a play calling standpoint, there wasn't a problem as much as they just didn't have the athletes. Now they have the athletes, and this Kansas team, quite frankly, on the offensive side of the ball is very exciting. Now, looking at the University of Houston, as you guys know, very, very high on Houston. A tough loss to Texas Tech last week. They were able to beat UTSA, probably not playing their best football. Honestly, probably should have lost that game. They didn't play winning football for 3 quarters and kind of came back. I think Houston is just overcomplicating the offense a little too much. I get trying to run the football, get trying to establish the run, but they just aren't doing it efficiently enough. And they are really trying to, with transfers like Brandon Campbell, trying to establish the run. But you look at what they've done per game, only 114 yards on the ground. that's really not where the juice is. That's not where the playmakers are. You look at this University of Houston football team, where are the playmakers on the offensive side of the ball? Clayton Tune, your all-conference quarterback, and Tank Dell, again, I say this all the time. He's not just one of the better wide receivers in the AAC. He is one of the better wide receivers in the whole entire country. And when you have someone like Tank Dell on the offense side of the ball, you best be getting him touches. And I just don't think Houston is putting enough emphasis on that. You look at when he touches the ball, Tank Dell, they are extremely efficient. Only down part is he only has 12 catches on the year. He had a punt return called back against Texas Tech. When he's touching the ball, that's when this Houston team is cooking. You also have guys like Matthew Golden, who had a few drops in that opener. He's also very athletic. And I feel like this offense is kind of overcomplicating what it needs to do. Look at the team. Where are your playmakers? Where are your special talented players? Tank Dell, Matthew Golden, Clayton Tune. Let them cook. Don't try to – I feel like they're wasting so many snaps trying to establish this run game that just isn't really alive. Focus on where your playmakers are. Get those guys the ball. That's what I think is going to lead to success with this University of Houston team. Now, for a pick on this game, I don't necessarily love a side just because this Kansas Jayhawks team is dangerous. Like, they are headhunting. They're not a team you want to bet against, quite frankly. Now, where I do think there might be some values, I do think this will be a shootout. I really do like what Kansas is doing on the offense side of the ball with establishing the run, letting guys like Devin Neal, Jalen Daniels cook. You look at Houston, they struggled containing Frank Harris when he was able to be an athlete outside of the pocket. I think you might see that a little against Kansas as well. Houston has a very good front four when they're pinning their ears back and getting after the pass. I think Derek Parrish, had 4 sacks and 7 pressures against Texas Tech. He was an absolute menace, and I believe he still has a club on his hand. He is one of the best defensive ends in the conference. That being said, they pin their ears back. They don't really look to keep that quarterback in the pocket. Jalen Daniels is a guy that you want to keep in the pocket. I see some explosive plays happening for both offenses, and I think this could be a little bit of a track meet. Again, this isn't a bet that I'm giving out, but if I were to kind of look at this game and give my take, I think there's going to be a lot of offense on both sides of the ball. Both these teams like to get the ball into their playmakers' hands in space. I think you see a lot of explosives. Houston's defense hasn't been great. UTSA moved the ball a lot on them, especially in that first half. Texas Tech also moved the ball a lot. They had 3 interceptions, which kind of kept Houston in it a little bit. But Texas Tech also moved the ball against this Houston team that I like their defense, but they do give up some big plays. I think you're going to see a lot of big plays. You look at the total here, I believe it's sitting at 57.5. I think these teams will be able to run it up a little bit, and you'll see that overhit. I don't think Kansas has the athletes on the defense side of the ball yet to contain Houston with all those playmakers like Tank Dell. You saw West Virginia. They ran it up on Kansas pretty good. They just really couldn't get off the field on defense, West Virginia. That's where I would be looking if I were trying to find some value on this game. But for me, this game is me sitting back, watching some really good playmakers on both sides of the ball get after and have a very, very fun, entertaining football game. That'll do it for our breakdown on Kansas and Houston. Appreciate y'all for checking us out. Again, if you like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let us know in the comment section what we should be looking for. This Kansas team, I probably one of the last Power 5 teams I know that much about. So let me know in the comment section what players I should be looking for. Again, appreciate all the support you guys have shown to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.